Good morning and happy Sabbath. It's good to see all four of you up here. I wonder where your friends went. They decided to stay in the pews, I guess, today, huh? All right, we've been reading about angel stories. And one thing that's been interesting about these angel stories is how sometimes, even though bad things happen, God still watches out for us. And today's story is about a little boy named Sammy. And Sammy lived in Africa a long, long time ago. And there was a season where the rain didn't come like normal. And it didn't rain, and it didn't rain, and it didn't rain. Do you know how long it didn't rain for? 2 whole years. And people were getting hungry. And people didn't have very much to eat. And Sammy's family in his village, they didn't have anything to eat. And his mommy and his daddy both got sick and they died because of the famine. And so these people, because they didn't know about Jesus, they didn't have much of a funeral service. And when you don't have much to eat, you don't have much energy to have a funeral service. And so they just dug a hole, and they put his mommy and daddy in the hole, and they buried them. And Sammy looked at the man who was burying his mommy and his daddy, and he said, "I'm hungry. Do you have any food?" And he said, "No, I don't have any food. Go away. There's no food here." So Sammy thought, well, maybe if I go to the next village, they'll have something to eat. So he walked very slowly to the next village. And Sammy, he wasn't nice and plump like you kids are. His skin was bad, his hair was thin, and he had scabs on his skin because he had so little food, his body could hardly keep him alive. So he went to the next village and he said, "I'm hungry, do you have any food?" And they said, "No, we don't have any food, go away." So he walked and he kept walking. And he went for like 2 weeks. And he'd been 2 weeks since he'd had anything to eat. And he was eating grass and some roots. And he ate a vine one day and it made him sick. And he was throwing up and he just didn't have any food at all. So finally he got to a place and the villager said, "No, go away." And as he was going away, he came across a man. And this man was a big fat man. And the villagers thought there was something weird about this man. And they chased him out of the village. And so he lived in a hut all by himself. And Sammy said, "I'm hungry. Do you have any food?" And he says, "Yeah, come here." So he dug around in his fire because he didn't have a cook stove. He just built a fire in the corner of his hut. And he pulled out a big sweet potato. So he gave it to Sammy. And Sammy just ate it all up. It probably looked like this microphone too. He just ate it all up. And he said, "I'm hungry." And the man said, "Nope, can't eat anything else." He says, "Go lay down and sleep." So he laid down on this old pile of grass in the corner. And he went to sleep. And when he woke up again, he said, "I'm hungry." So the man dug around in the fire and pulled out a sweet potato and gave him another sweet potato. And he ate that. And this went on for about 2 weeks. And after about 2 weeks, the man came. Sammy was asleep. And he says, Sammy, wake up. And he says, What? I'm tired." He said, "Get up, come on. And so they got up and they started walking through the night. And the man carried a shovel and he carried a sack. And they walked for 4 hours through the jungle in the night. And Sammy didn't want to do it. "Come on, walk faster, come on." So finally they got to a place where some white people lived. Some Europeans. And the Europeans had drilled wells. And so their wells were very deep so they could pump water up out of the ground and they could water their gardens. And they had a fence and they had a night watchman to keep track to make sure that people didn't break in and steal all their stuff. And so we're going to call the man that Sammy was with Fagin, because we don't really know his name, but the person that wrote this story said that she didn't like the name Fagin, so she called him Fagin. And he dug a hole under the fence, and he told Sam, he's like, "There's vegetables over there. There's green beans and sweet potatoes and cabbages, and you're going to go pick them." And he said, "But you have to be very quiet because there's a guard, and he has a long stick, and he might point the stick at you, and fire comes out the end of the stick. It was a gun, and he can shoot you, and if he shoots you, you could die. So he says, you have to be very quiet. So Sammy squeezed under the hole under the fence, and he went and he started picking cabbages, and he put them in the bags, and he brought them back, and Fagin made the hole bigger, and they pulled the bags out from under the fence, and they filled up 2 big bags. And then they started walking back home, and a long walk home. So then Fagin would take those bags of vegetables, and he'd go far away to a different place, to a market, and he would sell them. And he would get lots of money for those vegetables. And Sammy woke up once, and Fagin was digging in the corner of the hut, and he uncovered a box, and he pulled out the box, and he opened the lid, and Sammy was pretending to be asleep because he didn't want to be seen that he had seen this. And the man opened the box, and the box was full of money. And he put the money in there, and he closed it. That's why none of the villagers liked this man, is because they knew that this man was stealing. And so they kept doing this. Every few nights they would go somewhere and they would steal things. So one day they went to a different place. They went to the missionary's house. And there was 1,000 students there at the missionary college. And they needed all their vegetables to feed all their students. But Fagin dug under, but he didn't tell them that they had a fire stick. He told them that these missionaries eat little boys and girls that they catch. He said they will catch you, and they will take you, and they don't like to eat dirty food though, so they will wash you. And they will use this stuff, they have this little bar that while they wash you, they rub it on you, and if it gets in your eyes, it hurts. It was soap. Do you like soap in your eyes? No. Well, maybe your mommy uses soap that doesn't hurt your eyes, but this kind of soap would hurt your eyes. So he says, be very careful, because these people eat you, and they don't eat you all at once. They just go and maybe they eat fingers with fried eggs for breakfast, or they just eat a leg or an arm for lunch. They'll eat you very slowly. So Sammy was very scared. And so he's under there and he's gathering food. Well, guess what happened? The night watchman came. And he came over and he grabbed Sammy, and Sammy's trying to get away, and he's trying to run away, and he drags Sammy back, and the missionary lady comes out. And do you think Sammy had ever seen a white person? No. And this lady had long blonde hair. And she was right in the middle of brushing her long blonde hair when the night watchman caught Sammy and took him up to the missionary. He says, "This is a thief." And the missionary lady said, "That is a little boy that looks very, very hungry." And she said, "And he's also extremely dirty. Go wash him." And so the night watchman takes him over to the sink, and he runs some water, and Sammy's trying to get away, and he's climbing out. And then they take the soap. They rub the bar of soap on him, and they're getting soap, and he gets soap in his eyes, and it hurts. And he thought, oh no, they're going to eat me next. And so the missionary lady comes, and she says, "Okay, bring him in here." So they go into the kitchen. She takes the little boy by the hand. Can you hold your hand for a sec? And she takes him, and they walk across the floor. And they have linoleum on their floor, and it had roses, pictures of flowers on the floor. And so Sammy's trying to go like this so he doesn't step on a flower. And of course, the missionary lady just walks like this. She goes over, and she puts pajamas, like a nightgown, on Sammy, because this happened a long time ago, and that's what they did. They had nightgowns. They put a nightgown on him, and she set him on a chair, and she went and she got a big knife. And he thought, oh no. And then she got this brown thing, and she started cutting on the brown thing. What do you think the brown thing was? Bread. So she cut him a big thing of bread, and then she got another knife, and she scraped off some stuff that looked like grease. What do you think that was? butter. She puts the butter on the bread, and then she gets out a jar of bright red lumpy stuff. She scoops some out and she spreads it on the bread. What do you think that was? Jelly! She put jelly on the bread. And then she puts it on a plate and she gives it to Sammy. He just ate it all down. And do you know what happened to Sammy after that? Do you think they ate his fingers and his toes? No. They fed him and they took good care of him. And do you know what Sammy grew up to be? He grew up to be an evangelist, so he could tell other people about Jesus. Was Jesus watching out for Sammy? Did Sammy think some bad things had happened to him? First his mommy and his daddy died, and then he was with this man that was stealing stuff. But did God work it all out in the end? Yes. The Bible says in Romans chapter 8, verse 28, it says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose." Romans chapter 8, verse 28. Did God have a calling for Sammy, the little boy that almost died of starvation? Did God have a big job for him? Yes. Does God have a big job for you someday? Yes. Do we know what your job's going to be someday? Not yet. But we know God has a special job that he's called just for each of you to do someday. All right. Thank you for listening, and you can go back to your seats now.